Hello YouTube and welcome back for another meta report. So we're heading into the Summer Showdown. There is a lot of misconception around what is happening with the hero pool. So let me just briefly describe what is happening this year. So the way it worked is that May Melee had no hero pools, June Joust has hero pools, Summer Showdown does not have hero pools. The next tournament, the Countdown Cup, I think will have hero pools, and then playoffs won't have hero pools, right? So there's going to be alternating on no hero pools to hero pools to no hero pools to hero pools, and then no hero pools for the playoffs, right? So what that will do is it adds diversity into each tournament, right? Instead of having hero pools all the time and adding diversity that way, it's great to be able to see all the roster in certain tournaments. So going into the Summer Showdown, we will not have hero pools. So we are going back to the full roster being in the lineup, okay? Something we do need to talk about though is patch notes. League of Legends. What? God damn it. I just typed in patch notes and it didn't give me Overwatch. Google please. We need to look at the patch that we're going to be ending up on. So this is the patch that we will be playing on. So this patch right here. The Baptiste change doesn't really change much. The charge time of your Exo Boots is higher. Doesn't really change a whole lot. The Exo Boots are still going to be good. A big one that is added in is the ultimate cost of Echo is going up by 15% ult charge. So it will be 15% longer for Echoes to get their ultimate. Just coming out of the June Joust, we all know that there was just a ridiculous amount of Echo ultimates and also coalescences coming off all times. This is a great way to combat that. Doesn't really fix the issue of copying D.Va, getting 19 D.Va bombs in one team fight, but hopefully it will slow it down a little bit. But Echo's still going to do a ton of damage, and I expect to see a lot more Echo coming in future in the Summer Showdown. McCree, in an attempt to reduce, I would say, the flanking style of playing McCree, and they even say this in the messages, the reload time is up for McCree, and the roll distance is down. Okay, so he's not going to be able to just fucking fan the hammer, roll, fan the hammer, just fucking reload, fan the hammer, and just do a million damage like he has been doing kind of as like a tank buster. Or like a backline buster. So that should be a nice little change for Kree. Don't think it makes him drastically worse, just a little bit of difference. Moira gets a buff and a nerf. So the amount of ultimate cost for the coalescence is going up by 17%. So for the same reasons like Echo, her ultimate is going to be 17% longer to charge. So Moira will take longer. I remember talking to Indy on the player round table. I'm not sure if this made the cut in the video, but he said playing the style of just like waiting for your Moira to get coalescence, it feels a lot worse, right? It is 17% longer to get that coalescence. So instead of just everyone taking damage, farming that coalescence really fast, all of a sudden that takes another 10 to 15 seconds, right? As it adds up, which makes it, is it worth just making that change, trying to build that ultimate. So hopefully that will combat that style, and Moira won't always feel like they have coalescence for every single fight. And then a small quality of life change for Moira, which was the buff, is when she is using coalescence, if you use all your P, use all your heal, when you use coalescence, it will actually charge up. And I think it says about half of your healing resource will go up. You'll get half of a bar back after using your coalescence. So it is essentially making you so that you'll come out with some form of resources so that you're not just coming out and you still don't have any healing. So slight buff, more of a quality of life thing, nothing too big. Reaper was an interesting one. I don't really know why this change came in, but a 5% buff to the lifesteal of Reaper. It's nice. It's not game changing for Reaper, but we already saw, we just came out of the June Joust. Reaper was already played a lot. Especially if we go back towards a meta where we saw a lot in May Melee, we could see a lot more Reaper because he has that extra survivability. Reaper might actually be legitimately viable coming into this one, especially if we end up in a brawl. And the Xayah change is her beam damage now scales. So from 0 to 100 energy, it scales from 75 to 170 compared to historically it was 95 to 170. So you will do a significantly less damage when you have 0 charge with your left click, okay? So that is a big change, but it also scales as you go up, right? If you're at 100 energy, you're doing the same amount of damage, but if you're like 50% damage, 50% charge, you're now doing like 5 to 10 less damage, right? So it scales in that way for Xayah. So Xayah got, I would say, pretty drastically worse. I don't know if this affects her secondary fire or her right clicks. I don't really know how that works. But yeah, nerf nonetheless to Xayah. So that's all the patch that we're looking at, and that's how hero pools are going to be working heading in. So let's work out how this is going to affect the meta. What do we think is going to be played? So I think we need to go all the way back to Melee qualifiers, right? In the qualification for the qualifiers, we saw a massive amount of diversity, right? This is the Melee qualifiers. There wasn't a single hero that was played over 50% in the qualifiers. So this is the leading up to the playoffs and all that kind of stuff. So look at how much diversity is here. We saw a lot of different things. We saw a lot of Reinhardt. We got 35% Winston. We got 39% Reinhardt. We got 22% Wrecking Ball. There's Sigma, there's D.Va, there's Xayah. It was all over the place, right? People were really starting to work out what was going on with the patch. Like, everyone just came in just trying everything, throwing everything at the kitchen sink and the kitchen sink at the wall to see what stuck. And it was great. I think we can all look back at the Melee and be like, diversity, that was great meta, wasn't it? It really was. Especially seeing as we went further on and in the playoffs, we'll let this load. Look at this as well, actually. This is really worth noting. Reaper was only played 1% of the time. Even in the playoffs, it was only played 1.9% of the time. So Reaper was not really played much in the Melee. Even same thing with Moira, right? We're at a 5% Moira. Actually, I want to go back and look at this in the past as well. In the qualifiers, Moira got played 2%. So Moira was really not a pick at all in the Melee, which is interesting looking forward. But then we went on to the playoffs and we started to see some standardization, right? As the best team started playing, we started seeing some like meta consolidation, primarily with what the Dallas Fuel were playing. It leaned that way. So we started going way more towards the Winston style, the Tracer style, and you were playing this Ana, Brig, Winston, Tracer, D.Va style with a lot of Echo. It ended up going very heavily towards that Echo, Tracer, Sombra, Winston, D.Va, and then Ana, Brig. That was where we spent most of our time, like playing the meta. What the fuck? No. In the Melee, and it was starting to consolidate that way. Okay, so that is what everyone would, if it kept going, everyone would have started playing that style, I think. And I think that bled over into the June Joust. So let's have a look at what we played in the June Joust. So in the qualifiers, once again, we have the hero pools come in. No Zen, no Ryan, no Tracer, no Sombra. Those are very dramatic picks to be missing out. And look at there, it's not this nice little balanced bar graph anymore. We got a massive skew, right? There was 80% Echo played. And I think this is going to be a continuing trend going into the Summer Showdown, that Echo is just really fucking good. Even with that 50% ult charge nerf, that it's going to be played a lot. D.Va is also very strong in this current meta, so I think Echo and D.Va are going to continue to be paired throughout the entire Melee. As much as Xayah was played a bit in the Melee, it sort of fell out of favor just because of how isolatable the Xayah was, so Echo D.Va is staying in it. We saw a lot of this Winston Ana being played for the most part through it, but then obviously as time went on, obviously this is the qualifiers, right? We saw a lot of Orisa, we saw a lot of Hitscan, we saw some Sigma. There was not as much Lucio and Moira being played at the time, so that's why there was so much Ana Mercy being played. But as we all know, we go towards the grand finals of the playoffs. It's gonna be fucking skewed in a heavy way. This is where we ended up, right? This was the comp that we ended up on for the entire June Joust at the very end. We got the Echo D.Va once again, both over 80%, playing the Reaper with the Echo, and then you play the Lucio Moira with the Winston. There was sputterings of the Orisa comps, double shields, a little bit of hit scan, a little bit of Brig, you know, all that kind of shit. But for the most part, that was the comp that was played. So that is where we ended up. So that is the history of what we watched throughout the Overwatch League, in the Melee and the June Joust. So the question becomes, we're going into the Summer Showdown, what is going to be played? I don't know. Is the TLDR. I remember talking to Space about it when I was able to talk to him. Obviously, it was very early on. I think Gator said they hadn't even been scrimming yet. I don't think Space had been putting too much time, but From what the gist of what he said is that it's all up in the air still. No one's really consolidated and no one's really found that prime comp. Everyone's trying everything. I think a lot of people are still trying to help and find value out of the Lucio Moira comp. We learnt from the the June Joust, that the Lucio Moira comp was the best composition. It's just too consistent, too easy to play, that it just overruns everyone else. So, especially with Reinhardt coming back into the mix and being able to play on some of these brawl maps, is the Lucio Moira going to be better? Plus, you need to keep in consideration as well, Baptiste took a pretty heavy nerf before this patch with his Immortality field. His Immortality field now has a minimum of 10% instead of 20%, and his healing, AoE healing is less, but his direct healing is more. So, Baptiste changed pretty dramatically in that style, so are people going to move towards Lucio Moira and keep playing that style with the Reinhardt and play towards that brawl rush style and run at them? Less brawl, more rush. Maybe. I think that is completely potential, especially on your King of the Hills and your control points, because those are generally where the clashes, map positioning, and getting there first matters the most. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see a lot of Lucio still being played on those control maps. But now that we have Zenyatta back in the mix, we have Sombra back in the mix, we have Tracer back in the mix, how is that going to affect how these teams are going to be played? Because Sombra is very good against the rush style, because you can hack, you can slow everything down, you got your EMPs, especially against the Moira, right? Tracer is coming back in. Tracer is almost always good in any single meta, but she doesn't really fit in the rush. Maybe you play the Tracer Reaper, but the Echo is almost always going to be played. Can you play faster than the Echo is going to be able to get value? Maybe. I think if anything, I think the double shield won't be played. I don't think double shield is going to be coming in. I don't think the Zen is enough of an element to add back into the composition to really make it successful. So I don't see double shield coming back with the addition of Zen. I don't really see Zen being played at all, if I'm being honest. Maybe there's some bunker styles that can utilize Zen, but for the most part, with Tracer Sombra back in it, and with Echo just being so gosh darn oppressive and prominent, I don't think Zen is going to make that comeback. There is a world in which we go back towards the Anna Brig Winston with the Echo with the Echo Mercy, right? We saw that. Was that that's where we ended up in the Melee playoffs, right? Yeah, Bo's trying to say hello and see if he agrees with me. What do you think of the meta, Bo? Let this load real quick. So here we go. So when we went into the playoffs at the very end, as he said, this is where we went to. So they actually played a lot more Brig and a lot less Mercy, right? So this is where I think we're most likely to end up. There was a little bit of the Reinhardt, as we saw on certain maps, but this was pretty much the comp, and I think this is where we're going to stay. If we're going to go anywhere, I think we're going to go back to the Melee playoffs, because I think the Tracer Echo can be so oppressive, and everyone can generally live against the run at you style. So I think it's going to be a clash between the Lucio Moira or the Brig Ana, or even Mercy Ana style of playing with that Echo Tracer. So time will tell which one comes out tops, but those are going to be, in my opinion, the most prominent compositions. I don't think hit scan's going to work. As I said, it all goes back to the fact that Echo just plays the game too fast, and everyone is leaning towards, and this is how Dallas Fuel's been so successful. The faster you play, the more control you have over the match. And as much as it isn't good for the lower ranked teams because it requires a ton more execution, the best teams are going to adopt that and be very good at it. So we'll see. We'll see. Now let's throw it to chat, because that's essentially my TLDR. But it's not a very long video at this point. I can easily just end it, but I want to see, do you guys have any thoughts, questions about the meta? I don't want to talk about Striker or Arns. I want to talk about the meta. Is there anything that you guys think that could be prominent or something could change? We're not an hour. Hey, if you guys don't have any serious questions, you guys don't lean one way. You guys are usually very opinionated, so I wanted to jump into you. Will other teams pick up the Wrecking Ball? That's actually a very good question. Thanks, chat. See? You guys actually have a great question, because as we saw at the very end of the June Joust, the Shanghai Dragons became incredibly successful playing the Wrecking Ball. I think if you are going to play the Lucio Moira, the Wrecking Ball might be the play, right? You stick with that June Joust roster or you play the Wrecking Ball and you can play fast. But I think the Reinhardt might just do the Wrecking Ball's job better. So maybe not the Wrecking Ball. But I think if we go towards that Anna Brig or Anna Mercy style, I think the Winston is better because that Winston is the primary nano target and is able to go very heavily back and forth. So potentially, I feel like Wrecking Ball might have been one of those heroes in the Mei melee that went untapped. The biggest issue that I think you run into with Wrecking Ball is that you're going to have the Brig and the Sombra potential, right? Because if you can play both of those, they're hard counters to the Wrecking Ball, and if those can be implemented some way, they will be implemented some way. So as much as we've seen the Wrecking Ball work well against the Lucio Moira, it can be countered too easily as a Wrecking Ball, so we'll see. Thoughts on the BAP Lucio Ryan rush coming out of June Joust? Yeah, so that was played somewhat with the Baptiste in Mei Melee, right? But wasn't played in the June Joust. The game has evolved. Will the Reinhardt Lucio BAP brawl style be good? Remember, the lamp is, as I said, nerfed, and I think that is a pretty heavy toll. Would you be better off just playing the Lucio Moira and playing the rush style instead of the brawl style? It would like... Because remember, what was played in the Mei Melee was this Ryan Lucio BAP with like a McCree Echo, Reaper Echo, McCree Reaper, and that kind of style stuff. So it was very up in the air, but it sort of fizzled out and faded away as time went on. So will people try and revisit that? I'm not sure. Any chance Bubble reappears? I don't think so. I think the game is played too fast against the Xayah. That the Xayah can be isolated as a target too much, and D.Va's just been getting way too much value, I think. Will we see a vastly different meta in APAC versus NA? I think NA is way more likely to go back towards the Lucio Moira Reinhardt, while I think APAC is more likely to go towards the Anna Brig Winston style. That is generally their bread and butter. They really like playing that, especially when they can let their echoes and traces really shine. APAC loves Winston. Oh, they also love Sombra. That's a great point by Ms. Liz. They also very much love playing their Sombra, so they would heavily lean towards Sombra. NA not so much. NA fucking hates Sombra because we're honest people. No, I'm joking. But NA doesn't usually play the Sombra style. We're way more likely to play the Mei. So as much as we have some honesty, not that much honesty, because NA does love playing some Mei in comparison to the APAC region. So everyone has their vices. Sombra is fine. Absolutely not. They only didn't play Winston when NA played him, yeah. So, Dallas the only Sombra team in NA, yeah, that really lean into it, so. May's the devil, fuck Sombra, yeah. I think we can all agree that neither one of them are that good, but hopefully we don't see that. I'm really hoping we end up, personal preference, I really hope we end up in like a Tracer Echo. I hope we end up in the Tracer Echo Anna Mercy, like, meta. With like a hit scan or maybe like a Brig. I think that's a really fun meta. I think there's a ton of pop-off potential. I think there's a lot of team play, but I also think it's followable. And I hope we don't end up playing Moira. I hope we don't end up in a Moira, a Mei, or a Sombra meta. If we can avoid all three of those, I don't give a fuck what else is played. Maybe not a Brawl meta either. With like the Baptiste, just everyone running at each other. But Ryan Rush might be has potentials as well. So there's a little bit back and forth. So. But yeah, I think that's the thoughts. I think we hit everything that I wanted to hit in this video. I wanted to keep it short, sweet, and simple. I think we answered everything. Hopefully you found this interesting. If you guys have anything you wanted to add in the YouTube comments or anything like that, just let me know because there's probably something that I missed. And I'm going to be honest. I started this video saying I have zero idea what the meta is going to be played. I don't think the teams really have it. You don't really know until you can get into these scrims, really start applying things. And I think it'll be very diverse in the first couple of weeks, as it has been throughout the entirety of the season, going into each tournament with every new meta cycle. So hopefully it'll come out in the wash in the playoffs and we can start to see all these teams thrive. But I love seeing that meta can give you wins early on if you make the right read. And I think the Paris Eternal were a prime example of that in the June Joust. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, and I'll see you next time.